you just gotta see some of this stuff to believe it. Like, and research using remote practices that have allowed them to continue their research, publication submissions, etc., with minimal disruptions. Minimal disruptions. What world are you living in that you can write that? Okay, it's your girl, Dr. Davis, and I'm back today, again, contributing to this series of videos that I'll be going through specific examples of evidences, kind of displaying what I experienced on the tenure track, and in a really bizarre environment. So today, this video is going to be spotlighting the really disregard that some administrators have for people on the tenure track and the unexpected impact, obviously, that the coronavirus pandemic has had on research, productivity, and data collection, and the entire normal kind of thing that nobody expected. Nobody expected any of this. Okay, so you just gotta see some of this stuff to believe it. Like, some of it is just so strange that I still have difficulty processing that many of these things said were actually put into writing. Anyhow, the pandemic started amidst the time I was on the tenure track before my third year review, and it significantly impacted things. So what I'm going to be sharing, let me just go ahead to share screen. I'll start off with the specific request that I made after learning from the provost office that we could make a request to postpone our third year review, submitting third year review materials, and postpone our third year review due to the pandemic. So this was made December 17th, 2020. I sent it to the Dean of the School of Social Work, and I also copied the Associate Dean of Research. And it's interesting because I had reached out for help in drafting like what these materials should look like. And unfortunately, the ADR did not provide any support or guidance in telling me what evidence I needed to present in order to make this request. So I just did it on my own. But I copied her so that it could be documented that at least she knew I was making this request. So, dear Dean Ryan, please accept my request for a delay in submitting third year review materials. The global coronavirus pandemic halted domestic travel within the US in the spring of 2020. The Centers for Disease Control advised and continues to advise social distancing and shelter-in-place measures in order to protect the public health, which prevents normal domestic and international travel. Due to these restrictions, I was not able to travel to Chicago, Illinois, and proceed with a major pre-planned research project. Furthermore, my primary community partner is an 80-year-old person, therefore posing a significant risk of danger if I were to defy recommendations and pursue the plans. Secondly, peer-reviewed journal processes have drastically slowed down due to the residual effects of COVID-19, and articles that I submitted are taking much longer than usual to be reviewed. Finally, I am the primary caregiver for 2 small children. A number of scholars have written on the differential impacts that this pandemic has had on women scientists, for example, stating, quote, findings revealed that male academics, especially childless ones, were the least affected group, whereas female academics, especially Black women and mothers, were the most impacted group. 2020. Now I'm going to read to you the name of the titles of the publications and some of the outlets in which they were published. Again, I was asked to provide evidence that the pandemic was significantly a worldwide issue, which felt very odd. But nonetheless, I went ahead and some of the citations are a mix of the differential impacts on people with my circumstances and of my identity, and then also citations from public health experts saying that we should be social distancing, there should not be travel, and that this is what we need in order to protect the health of the public. I submitted screenshots of canceled flights and emails from editors saying that we are experiencing a backlog. That's why your stuff is taking so long to be reviewed. All the evidences that you would think one would normally say, here is the proof that this is impacting me in my research career and agenda. I provided all of that. Citations are titles, Preventing a Secondary Epidemic of Lost Early Career Scientists, Effects of COVID-19 Pandemic on Women with Children. And I provide across disciplines to give a wide range. This one was from Annals of the American Thoracic Society. But another one, Gender, Race, and Parenthood Impact Academic Productivity During the COVID-19 Pandemic, From Survey to Action. Another, The Pandemic and Gender Inequality in Academia. 10 Simple Rules for Women Principal Investigators During a Pandemic. The next one is from The Lancet. Challenges for the Female Academic During the COVID-19 Pandemic. A publication in the American Journal of Public Health. Gender Differences in First and Corresponding Authorship in Public Health Research Submissions During the COVID-19 Pandemic. And the next one is one I really want to focus on in this video. This video, the purpose of this video is to bring attention to this specific citation and us to talk about how people purposefully ignore science and evidence that doesn't align with their own beliefs or agenda. Okay, so the next one is titled Productivity in a Pandemic. Now you can go read that one. It is published in Science. And so for Science to publish a work speaking to issues of productivity in a pandemic, spotlights and backs up everything that I'm saying in my request for an extension of the third-year review. So the 17th of December, I submit that. Here's the response. December 23rd. Hi, Maxine. Thank you for your submission. The challenges presented by COVID-19 have been difficult on many of us, and I appreciate and sympathize with the effect it has had on you and our faculty. However, with the exception of faculty whose research mandated that they travel internationally to have on-site access to research materials, the university has not granted third-year review extension requests. In general, our faculty have done an amazing job with modifying their teaching and research using remote practices that have allowed them to continue their research, publication submissions, etc., with minimal disruptions. Minimal disruptions. What world are you living in that you can write that? I'll continue. I have reviewed your request and consulted with the provost office. We agreed that your request is respectfully denied and you should proceed with your third year review as scheduled. We'll come back to that in a moment because that is an important sentence. The challenges and delays you expressed with data collection are already addressed by a 1-year tenure clock extension, which would be after the third year review, and should not have any impact on this review cycle. How? That doesn't make any sense. Why would the challenges in my data collection not have any impact on the review of this cycle when I'm submitting all of the accomplishments that I have had and made and all of the research I've done up until this moment? But I've had over 10 months where I could not travel to my primary research site, which is in Chicago, which you knew when you hired me, and it's been outlined in all of my materials. Odd and bizarre. The public here, oh, this one, this is the one that gets me. The publication citations noted are outside of social work. So the Lancet, Science, American Journal of Public Health don't apply to social work. That's not true. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't, oh, okay. The publication citations noted are outside of social work, as if they don't apply, as if science, the Journal of Science doesn't apply to social science researchers and social work researchers. And while there was an initial delay across journals, as everyone went virtual, most journals have cleared any backlogs and caught up on publication issues. This is how Black women are excluded from academia and higher education. This is how. That is not true. What data source are you referencing that you can say most journals have cleared any backlogs and are caught up on publication issues? That's not true. Even today, fast forward a year later to January 2022, journals are still having trouble getting reviewers who are not paid for their services and are done purely on volunteer and service-based notions. Journals are still having trouble getting reviewers to actually commit to taking the time out of their life in dealing with this pandemic and in order to peer review other researchers' material, manuscripts. And then on top of that, getting them to be able to even return those reviews in a timely manner is an additional challenge. Oh gosh, I swear, you cannot make this stuff up. Like, what authority do you have? Are you an editor on every single academic journal? Did you do an international survey of journals, of reputable journals, in which you asked, are you cleared of your backlogs and caught up, and most of them, over 50% of them, said yes? Where is that citation? Please give me some evidence that that is true, because based on what I submitted letters from the journal editors that I had stuff under review, notating the exact opposite of that. Spotlighting that ordinarily manuscripts would have been reviewed at a quicker pace, and because of the pandemic and situation we're in, it's taking much longer and there's a backlog, and just, yeah, this is a situation we're in. But oh gosh, like you just have to actually see these words to be able to process again how these things happen. Anyhow, if further tenure clock extensions are needed in the future beyond the one already in place, you may submit a new request as outlined in the Handbook of Operation Procedures. See attached. As noted, is the responsibility of the faculty member to provide appropriate documentation demonstrating why the request should be granted. Now, there was no guidance or suggestion or anything of what type of documentation was necessary or requested or whatever. So I added in the things that I thought would made sense. Again, the ADR ghosted when I asked for help on this. Crazy. Sincerely, Scott. Okay. Now, remember that sentence that we looked at in the beginning of the letter? This is one that we just have to go back to. In general, our faculty have done an amazing job with modifying their teaching and research using remote practices that have allowed them to continue their research, publication submissions, etc., with minimal disruption. I don't know what world someone is living in that they can say that there has been minimal disruption to academics and higher education and research productivity. That's just a twist on reality. Here's the one. I have reviewed your request and consulted with the provost's office. We agreed that your request is respectfully denied and you should proceed with your third year review as scheduled. Now, there's two things that are happening here. One of two things. One, this is accurate, and for some reason, although the provost's office offered this option, their opinion is that the rationale that I provided wasn't good enough, which is like really a demonstration of how much you are not committed to the retention of Black women on the tenure track. And that is horrible. The other option is that Scott D. Ryan lied on the provost's office, and the provost's office did not, quote, agree with the request, agree that the request be denied. So, which is very plausible because there were multiple instances during my time in this department where there were mistruths represented, lies. So again, one option is that the provost office is just as disconnected from reality and just as committed to oppressing Black women on the tenure track as you. And the second is that you lied on the provost office, and they didn't say that. They said the decision is up to you and you decided to do this. I think that one is what really happened, because let's go back to what the provost office sent out to everyone and what sparked the reason for why I submitted this request in the first place. Here we go from the provost's office. For third year reviews, you may request a delay of 1 year if you need it. If you do not, then we would rather you keep you to your schedule. This is not an automatic extension. If you need an extension, faculty need to submit a written request to their chair, or in the case of schools, to their dean, for an extension specifying the reasons for the requested extension. The chair will approve or not and send it to the dean and the provost for their approval. Scroll down. General advice for moving forward. In general, we recognize the impact of the pandemic is differential and affects some of us more than others, some areas more than others. So, given that that was their official statement, leads me to believe that you are misrepresenting the truth, sir. Anyhow, that's just part one. Tune back into the part two, because I write a response to this decision. Because again, documentation is key in higher education and in organizations that have a history of mistreating employees and mistreating members of their community. So I wrote a response to address the statements in his justification that were simply inaccurate. Because if perhaps if HR looks at that and they're like, oh, okay, well, what the dean's saying is true. And I'm like, no. There are several things wrong with some of the sentences that you have included in this response to denying the request for a third year review extension. Okay, we'll be back with that video and that document in the second go around. But the reason why this is so important for me to release now is because, again, it's a year post and I've had time to reflect, heal, pray, and decide, from a healthy place, what I would like to share with the public around my experiences at the University of Texas at Arlington School of Social Work. And at this, this is one of the things that I think is important for folks to know and to see how this oppression occurs and how this behavior is enacted and allowed and rewarded, okay? Because this dean is still the dean of the School of Social Work at UT Arlington. So God have mercy on anyone who has to be under that leadership. I just really pray for everyone's freedom and liberation from a regime that is committed to being oppressive. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. What's your response or reaction to the request that I made and the response to it, and the statements from the provost's office. It's very sad to me that this is the state of affairs. Yet on the front facing end, it's like, oh, we want diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's like, no, your actions prove different. And since then, like, things have not drastically changed. Things haven't changed at all. We'll get into all of that and why I say all of that in future videos. Okay, so can you believe all of that? Again, that's only part one. Tune in for part two, where I share with you my response, and also the rest of what the provost statement was. Again, for somebody
okay, let's not be obscure with how we're talking about this. For a dean of school of social work to dismiss and deny the applicability of the journal Science to the relevance of faculty research and research productivity in general during the midst of the pandemic is bizarre and harmful. Obviously, on top of that, happy Martin Luther King Day. The reason that I'm deciding to release this particular little episode is, and these particular series of um, videos related to not recognizing and dismissing that the pandemic has a differential impact on Black women and Black mothers, and caretakers in general. The Society of Social Work, like the biggest social work research conference is happening right now as I record. And one of the prominent speakers that we had the honor of hosting and speaking with was the editor of Science. Yes, Holden Thorpe, the editor of Science, who's at Washington University in St. Louis at the SWR, SSWR, which is the major social work conference. My absolute favorite, by the way. Has the editor of Science as a key speaker at this year's conference. And just this time last year, this dean is talking about, oh, science is basically irrelevant. The articles that I listed, the Lancet, the American Journal of Public Health, Science, those are outside of the field of social work and implying that they have no relevance to the argument that I'm making that the COVID-19 pandemic has drastically and differentially impacted some over others, and some over others being historically excluded groups like women in science, women in higher education, Black women on the tenure track, Black women who are caretakers, Black women who are mothers of small children. Y'all, that blew my mind. That blew my mind. There's so much that I'm going to be covering and getting into. So, ooh, honey, grab your tea. Ooh, grab your tea, your coffee, whatever you need to help this go down a little bit better, because I need something to help ease this go down a little bit better. I mean, it's so bizarre and so unfair that this is the current state of leadership in a large school of social work with thousands of students online, albeit. But regardless, like this, that's the best you got. I just had to contextualize why that statement and many of them in that letter were so problematic. So again, going forward, I'm going to be bringing you this hot, steaming hot tea right here on this YouTube channel before it hits Twitter, before it goes anywhere else, before it is shared or grasped by media outlets. It's going to be coming right here, that fire right here on the YouTube channel. So go ahead, like, comment, share, and subscribe so you can be the first to hear every time I make a new video, like what particularly in this series of exposing what occurred in my time at the University of Texas at Arlington School of Social Work from 2018 to 2021. This is fresh, y'all. This ain't just like this happened 10 years ago. Like, this is actually what is happening now. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for the love and support. And do what you can to spread the word. Spread the word and let people know that they're not alone in experiencing these things, and have courage, take that step. Know of course the potential retaliation that can come from it, but share your resignation letter, share the crazy emails that people are emboldened enough to actually write to you. That's the only way I feel like things come to light and people can be held accountable, because and it's not even about punishment, it's just about being held accountable. Like, it's just sad. It's just really sad, y'all. So thanks for tuning in with me, and I will be back at you soon with more of what went down, how it went down, and again, bringing the receipts every single time. I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Bye. Peace.